bit of context and background to the Food Policy Council. Talk about some of our recent accomplishments, some of our hopes for where we would like to go. And then Alyssa is going to talk to you more about kind of our initial vision for having this new membership structure. Zach is going to go over some results of the form that you all filled out when becoming a member so that we can get a broader view of what our membership currently looks like and what you all thought were the most pressing food policy, food system issues to address in the state. And then we'll have ample time for some smaller breakout rooms so that you all can converse and so that we can really hear your all's feedback on what your vision is for the state's Food Policy Council and what you want to get from being involved and what you want to contribute to this group effort. And then we'll come back and do a big group debrief on those smaller conversations and call it a day for now. So when in getting started, I do want to give time for other board members to introduce themselves, as well as our amazing program coordinators for the council. So again, my name is Carrie Draper. I've been a part of the State Food Policy Council for, I think, a little over 5 years now. And my day job is being a senior research associate in the Arnold School of Public Health at the University of South Carolina. Alyssa, do you want to go next?
Sure. Thanks, Carrie. My name is Alyssa Duncan. I'm located in Spartanburg, and I'm co-chair with Carrie, and I believe this is my third year, starting my third year, maybe. I will pass it to Gregory.
Hello, good morning. My name is Gregory Sprouse, and I think I'm also on my third year on the Food Policy Council, and I work for Central Midlands Council of Governments, a regional planning agency in the Columbia area, and I work in our community and economic development programs.
Nikki, do you want to go next?
Sure. Alyssa, sorry I stole your name this morning. I am Nikki Seibert Kelly, and I'm in Charleston, South Carolina. Also been with Carrie on the board for several years. I facilitate the South Carolina Food Hub Network, and I have just recently started working with Benita Clemens, and we're doing minority farmer outreach. So if you guys have any contacts, we would love to connect. I also do some work with the Bamberg County Health Coalition. So it's nice to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Nikki. So other board members who are not going to be able to join us today are Phil Ford, Florence Nauru, Brian Wheat. So that is our small ID board team. And then Zach, do you want to introduce yourself as one of our program coordinators?
Sure. Hi, my name is Zach Hernstadt. I work with Carrie in the SNAP Ed program at the University of South Carolina. The main work that I do is working with local food policy councils around the state of South Carolina, providing training and technical assistance to get them up and running and sustainable. I also am fortunate enough to get to devote some staff time to the State Food Policy Council. So I'm really excited to see so many new faces here. And I'll turn it over to Ashley.
Good morning, everyone. Ashley Page Bookhart. Get to do a lot of great things as a part of USC SNAP Ed team, but in this role, also work with Zach, providing some staff support to the South Carolina Food Policy Council. And some of you may also know, I am also the chair of the Columbia Food Policy Committee as well, and get to do some library work. And some of you all know, do some gardening things through some of that work as well, but glad to be here in the Food Policy Committee capacity.
Thanks, Ashley, and thanks everyone else for those introductions. So get my slides to go. So the current mission of the State Food Policy Council is to advance the production and consumption of healthy foods in South Carolina through education and strategic policy planning. And we also work towards the goals of continued growth, promotion, and protection of a healthy agricultural industry, a safe and plentiful food supply, and a vibrant food system in South Carolina. And so I'm excited that about a year ago, we were able to get a new website, and Zach especially put a lot of time into building that out for us. So I'll be showing that, sharing that in a little bit when we talk about some of our recent accomplishments, but please jot that down. And that's really where you can find out more details about the Food Policy Council and our initiatives. And at this point, that's the only place. Do not look at our Facebook page, which has not been updated in about years, but we will try to work on that one. So a little bit of history about the Food Policy Council is that kind of the initial impetus for it happened in 2005 when volunteers formed a steering committee to explore creating a statewide policy council affiliated with the South Carolina Department of Agriculture, and about a year later held its first official meeting. And so for many years after that, that was a big piece of what the State Food Policy Council did, was to do an annual convening and write a report on kind of the results of that convening around topical issue areas that were happening around food access in South Carolina at the time. So some of the initial kind of wins and work that the Food Policy Council did was around farm to school and farm to institution. A lot of focus in early years and really throughout the years, but on healthy food financing and really building up healthy food businesses in the state. And then another example is when there was a lot going on in Congress around the Food Safety Modernization Act, and really a lot of farmers and other people interested in local agriculture, just some confusion about what really the implications were of that for our local food system in South Carolina. So that year, based on that, to bring in some experts to have conversation about those implications, we held a convening on the future of food safety. And then over the years, we've also worked very closely with the South Carolina Community Loan Fund on their food access task force. So people from our board were heavily involved in both iterations of the healthy food recommendations that came out of the task force that you can access on their website as well as our website. And then also in holding joint convenings with them most years when they had a food access task force specific convening every year, with one of the later ones we did with them focused on local Food Policy Council development. And so that kind of, I know, is a brief synopsis of 15, 16 years of State Food Policy Council work, but brings us up to recently expanding to this general membership. And so, the board, the way that the council has always been structured is kind of the only formalized roles within the council has been a pretty small board of directors. And so just based on capacity then among those board members is, the council's kind of ebbed and flowed over the years of really the capacity it had to be very active. And so we are excited to, have capacity nowadays where we really do feel confident that we can show up for you all and really be able to follow through on, having this membership option that we just really didn't have the capacity to do in the past. So some of our recent accomplishments, kind of within the past year and a half, I'm going to pull up our website and kind of walk you through some of that. So I'm going to turn it over to Gregory while I pull this up so that he can walk us through the South Carolina Local Food System Roadmap that was created, that Nikki was really the leader of working on with support from others, including Gregory. So Gregory, you want to walk us and just kind of tell me where you want me to click? What would be helpful?
Okay. Thank you. So this is an exciting initiative that has been underway over the last several years. And as Carrie mentioned, it's a project that has been supported by a number of partners across the state, but it was largely led by Sean Dove as a part of his graduate work at the College of Charleston under the direction of Nikki Siebert Kelly. And the project primarily consisted of developing an online mapping and resource tool to support the growth and development of local food systems in the state across the value chain from farm to table. And the initial inspiration from it came from a similar project or mapping initiative that was developed in North Carolina through the Center for Environmental Farming Systems at NC State. And really what we envisioned behind it was to be able to provide a data portal of sorts for stakeholders interested in learning more about the different aspects of their local food system, infrastructure and supply chain operating in the area. Basically, a place to be able to go and be able to find out who are the producers, the consumers in my area, what are the distribution nodes, and as Sean put it really well, he envisioned building a tool to really help us better understand the what, where, when, who, and how food is or is not getting from point A to B. So what we ended up with is actually really more than just a mapping tool. Sean also developed a great story map that not only describes how the tool works, but also provides some really valuable interpretive information analysis about the food system in the state. And then also the site is intended to be a companion piece to the Farmer Resource Guide, which provides a wide range of additional resources for farmers and is basically a detailed directory of businesses and organizations operating through the different sectors of the local food economy. And this is linked from the story map and it's available on the localfoodsc.org website. Just to give you a quick overview of the tool, as Carrie mentioned, it is available under the initiatives tab on the our main website. And Sean has organized it really nicely into these different tabs. And so on the one tab, you get the first tab on the left, you get the story map. And if you click through this, it just really provides a great overview of not only how the tool works, but Sean did a really good job in presenting some analysis of some of the data. And so if you read through this, you get a really good picture of some important aspects of the food system in the state. The second tab is the mapping tool itself. And this is a GIS-based map that gives us key infrastructure points such as farmers markets, roadside markets, food processors, food hubs, support organizations, a whole range of different data that you can zoom in and out at the local level and get a really good picture of where the different infrastructure points are in your community. And this comes from a wide variety of different data sources such as USDA, the DHEC, the business database is based on the NAICS codes, which is the National American Industry Classification System. And that's where a lot of work came in from Sean and parsing that data and pulling out all of the relevant food system related businesses. And then one of the other really great things about it is on the third tab, he compiled the USDA Ag Census data. And so there's a lot of really good variables from the Ag Census from the 2017 census, but also in some cases, he does some cross comparison of variables from the 2012 census. So you can really get a good picture of change over time. And this is some of the data that he summarized in the story map, really showing how different aspects of the food system have changed over the 2017 and 2012 census. And then the last tab on the right just combines the infrastructure data with the Ag Census data, so you can really get a good picture of how all of these things relate. So just the last couple things to point out, the question of where do we go from here? It's important to note that this is a work in progress. Sean was able to identify some important challenges with the data, things like how are we going to continue to maintain the data? And we've been in the process of trying to work through those challenges. And there's also been a lot of talk about adding some additional tabs and additional data sets to this so we can really get a good, robust picture of the food system. So overall, we're very excited about this tool and thinks that it has the potential to be used in a wide variety of settings and projects. We're already seeing it being used for local food system assessments across the state. I've been using it to work with some of our local governments and developing food system components of their comprehensive plans. And we've been talking about other ways that we can use it in the work that we do at the regional planning level with hazard mitigation planning and other types of things. So we really encourage you all to go to the website and check it out. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot any one of us an email to and we'll do our best to try to answer your questions, and we'd love some feedback on it. So I think, Carrie, that's all I have. If you, Nikki, if you want to add anything.
No, that was great, Gregory. You know, I think this was a really big team effort, and we tried to integrate all existing maps and data. And we are working with SCDA, which was the primary funder, to do an update of this map. So even since the completion of Sean's project, we're having a paid GIS professional go in and make it even more user-friendly, because if you're not savvy with GIS, you may struggle a little bit. We do want to make sure the data is open sourced, so the majority of the data on this map can be downloaded into Excel spreadsheets. So if you need something for a project, please reach out. We're happy to share and provide this data, which traditionally can cost thousands of dollars. So we want to make it easy to access. And there's tons of links in the sidebar. We are trying to integrate this with all of the kind of updated COVID resources for food access, which was not an initial focus of this project, but we do feel like is an important addition. So thank you, Gregory, so much. And big kudos to the whole group for providing data and sharing with us.
Awesome. Okay. Thanks, Nikki. Thanks, Gregory. That was great. And I will take a pause soon to just see if there are any questions from any of you. So feel free to put any questions in the chat box, but you can also verbally say whatever questions you have shortly. And Ashley, it's difficult for me to like manage the chat while I'm screen sharing and everything. So if you could take that on, I appreciate it. Thank you. So another initiative that I wanted to make sure to uplift today is our local food policy council work. So it's amazing to have Zach and Ashley who can really dedicate time to building capacity for local food policy councils. That's something that for several years now, at least, probably even more than that, as a council, you know, that we really wanted to prioritize. But again, you know, in the past, we were limited in having someone or someones to really take that work on. So it's amazing to have that now. So one of the things that just is hot off the press last week is that with SNAP Ed funding, we are going to be able to fund 6 groups that are either make up an established local food policy council or food policy council-ish kind of group at this point, or a multi-sector group that is interested in forming a local food policy council. And so that funding will be specifically can be used to fund staff locally to be able to do things like conduct community food assessments and hold community food gatherings to really hear from people most impacted by food inequities, and then to identify and advance policy systems and environmental change strategies aimed at improving access to healthy, equitable foods, and then engaging priority populations, again, most impacted by food inequity, and partners from diverse sectors in the Food Policy Council. So the deadline for filling out an interest form, it's a very, very brief interest form, is February 10th. So I would really appreciate it if you all could really help us get the word out, or perhaps you're interested in this opportunity yourself, but to get that interest form into us February 10th. And then throughout the later part of February, we will be doing virtual candidate interviews with interested groups, and then to hopefully be able to make funding award announcements by the beginning of March and have people start as soon as possible after that. So those are a couple of our recent accomplishments. Go back to my slideshow. And so some of our hopes for where we want to go from here is that we definitely recognize the need to be much more intentional regarding racial equity and inclusion. For really the whole history of the State Food Policy Council, the majority of the board members have always been white, and we know that that is a major problem. And so intentional then in soon recruiting new board members. We also want to update our mission and vision to better reflect the work that we're doing these days, as well as to better reflect our values as a State Food Policy Council, and are hopeful that you all will be a part of that process. And then, of course, continuing the work to build capacity for local food policy councils. Gregory and Nikki talked about, the map is also a work in progress and evolving, so continuing to update that. We also would, we are a food policy council, but we haven't always really focused so specifically on actually advancing food policy here. So that is something that, again, we would like to have your all's involvement in really building a strong food policy platform for the state. And then, of course, work with policymakers at the state level, build relationships with them and work with them to advance that platform. And then continuing to recruit new members and provide service and extensive opportunities for involvement. So I'm going to turn it over to Alyssa to talk a little bit more specifically then about membership.
I wanted to take a pause and see real quick. I don't know when you wanted to do this, Carrie, but to see if anybody had any questions so far, or if Ashley was seeing anything in the chat box.
It looks like nothing. Ashley shaking her head now.
Okay.
But does anybody have any questions they want to verbally ask us at this point? All right, I think you're good to go, Alyssa.
Okay. I did want to back up. I apologize. I didn't say anything about myself really when we were introducing ourselves as board members, but just to give you an idea of why I'm here and my experience. I've been working on food systems for over a decade since I was a graduate student at Clemson in city and regional planning. And nowadays what I work on is I coordinate a couple of coalitions. One is the Eat Smart, Move More Spartanburg County Coalition. And another is the Spartanburg Food System Coalition. And so we are working off of a food system assessment and plan where we've prioritized recommendations and are implementing those recommendations under several different themes in Spartanburg. I also am a member of the American Planning Association, and there is a new food systems division, and we have a policy work group that I'm on, and we're working on getting together some one-pagers on a few different themes for APA to be legislating or to be lobbying legislators about food systems. And so that is another reason that I'm really, really excited to have all of you all here to talk and inform us about what you're seeing at the local level, so that we can make sure that we are, that's our needs are known at all levels, state, local, and federal. So general membership, this, if we're going to coordinate and have a more efficient, effective, resilient, and impactful food system, we have to talk to one another. And so that's really why we have opened up this membership. We realize that there is so much going on in our state, and we couldn't think of a better way to coordinate that than to just start opening up this space for conversation between us about what we're all doing. So, so that's the main point for our general membership. So what does it mean to be a member? Well, being involved in these regular meetings to start with, so that you can be informed about what's happening in our food system, and so that you can share with others what you're doing. And so then we can identify gaps that need to be addressed in the system. So we offer to our members, like I just said, the opportunity to inform policy platforms and actions by providing feedback and serving on newly created committees if we think that that's a way that we need to move. You'll be receiving quarterly newsletters and legislative updates on relevant policy issues. We did just come out with a paper on COVID, food system and COVID. So that's on our website if you're interested in accessing that. Access to webinars on food systems and food policy that we'll be providing. And so we are going to be depending on you to inform us about what you would like to see in terms of education. You'll get an invitation to our annual gathering. I don't know for sure when that's going to be this year. I imagine it will be in the fall. And then the option to be part of our membership database to foster further collaborations. So what do we hope that you will contribute to our council? Well, we hope that you will, first of all, spend time with us each quarter during our general membership meetings so that we can keep one another informed. And we hope that if there is, if we identify some common goals, that perhaps you'll consider serving on a committee to move those goals forward and we can accomplish some things together. And that is all I have for you. I'm going to pass it on to Zach. Thank you for being here.
Well, I'm also really excited about the expansion of the council into general membership. And I just wanted to briefly share with everybody just some numbers and a little bit of background on who you all are. So when we opened our general membership up to everyone in South Carolina, we had you fill out just a brief interest form or questionnaire, just asking a couple things, and we thought that now would be a good opportunity to just share what we've found out so far. And now these, just a caveat here, these numbers are a couple days old, so I know we've had a couple additional folks that have joined, but as of I think Monday or Tuesday, we had 47 total memberships, and that is comprised of 29 individuals that are members, and then 18 organizations that have become members. And our membership by county, you can see down below. And if Carrie, if you want to go ahead and move on to the next slide, folks will be able to kind of see a breakdown as far as regions, and you can see the Midlands and Upstate are kind of carrying the show right now, though Low Country and PD we do have representation there. That's definitely an area, some areas that we want to work on, gaining additional membership. And then we had 3 organizations that listed statewide, that they represent the entire state. So we also asked everybody to list some of the sectors that they represented or that their organizations represented. And since we all wear many different hats, you could choose more than one sector that you represent. And this is just a list of the most common sectors that folks listed. And as you can see, we have a pretty good variety of interests and sectors that have been represented. We have a lot of folks that are involved in advocacy, folks that are involved in higher education and community work, as well as social justice, public health, anti-hunger and emergency food work, and then economic development and rural health and nutrition education are also pretty common. But this is going to be something that we continue to refer to and let this guide our discussions as we look to expand membership and increase diversity of the different sectors throughout the state that are represented in the council. And we want to make sure that everybody has a seat at the table. So this is one way that we can kind of work to make sure that happens. And the last thing that I wanted to share with you, and potentially the most interesting for us, was we asked folks to name the 3 most pressing food system issues in their opinion that need to be focused on in South Carolina. And you all had some amazing answers, and we have just started to do some initial analysis and thematic analysis on these. But what I can tell you is that the most common themes that have shown up so far have to do with food access and food insecurity, local and regional food systems, and nutrition and health education. And those are pretty big themes, as you can tell. So obviously within that, folks provided additional detail as far as specifics, but those are really the main three hats that folks tossed into. And then below that, I just included some additional themes that showed up somewhat frequently. So that's including farm and farm workers' safety and well-being, support for small and mid-sized farmers, connecting local producers with consumers, and structural racism in the food system, food waste, rural health, and then transportation. And as you can see, some of those could fit in one or more than one of those big 3 themes. But this is again something that we'll continue to keep updating, and we'll share with folks as our membership grows. So now we are at kind of the juncture where you're going to get to have a chance to chat with each other. And I think before we move to the breakouts, this might be another good time to see if folks have any questions or wanted to share anything. All right. So we are going to, at this point, break out into some groups of around 5-6 people. And what we are going to do is each breakout room is going to have either a board member or a staff member in the breakout room, and they will kind of provide you with some additional details. But we're going to have we wanted to give everybody a lot of time to talk through some of these discussion questions that you see on the screen right now. And so we're gonna give folks around 30 minutes to really hopefully dig into some of these questions. And the one thing that I would mention is that I will go ahead and also put those breakout questions right now into the chat box. And so you can kind of refer to that as we go. And what we will go ahead and do is, break out into these groups, and then we'll get back together in about half an hour and kind of debrief. So I'm going to go ahead and open the rooms up. I know that there are a couple folks that joined a little later, and so I don't think have been assigned to a room yet, but after folks leave and the rooms are set up, I'll go ahead and assign you to rooms that need additional folks. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and open up the rooms.
Look at all those beautiful faces.
I know. You know what? I think we need to get a picture.
I was just getting ready to do that. It's so big, I can't even get all y'all in here.
I know. We're going to have to take 2 of them. You going to do a screenshot, Nikki?
Everybody smile. Act natural. All right, page 2. Keep smiling. Don't make it look forced. Okay, you've been screenshotted.
Awesome. Okay, I think it is my turn to help debrief us. All right, let's find my guidance. I'm gonna call on you. I hope that you took note of your group numbers. If not, we'll sort it out. Okay, why can't I see everybody? Oh, okay. Thank you for bearing with me. All right. So we are going to kind of do a round robin here, and I'm hoping that you all chose a scribe and someone to share out from your group. So I hope you had enough time also to get to know one another a little bit. I think we did, and I was so happy to have the 30 minutes. But okay, so let's start with Carrie's group. Carrie, who was your scribe?
Mandolin did that for us.
Okay, would you mind sharing out what you all discussed?
Yeah, I was just telling them as we were getting brought back here that I was a little intimidated by trying to synthesize all of this, but I will do my best. So we had Yarly, Steedley, Zach King, and Bryant Davis, in addition to myself. Yarly has worked, I think she said she was with the Heart Association. She had to leave a little bit early, so she's not able to confirm that. But she has mostly worked with state policy initiatives. Zach has worked with Blue Cross Blue Shield. I know some of the stuff was already said in the chat, but has worked with multiple groups across the state on that issue. And food security is the main approach that they're taking with adults. So Bryant is with the Richland County Department of Community Services. So we discussed with trying to reach out and bring in, sorry, let me see. Who's missing from the group, basically. The main focus was on some of the smaller communities. A lot of the folks that are already with the Food Policy Council have been tied into more statewide networks, and there are some communities that might not be represented here because they haven't been a part of things at the state level. I myself just got in on this like in the last 2 days, and I would say I'm one of those smaller communities that otherwise wouldn't have known about it if I didn't have the connection with Zach and Ashley. And so I had seconded that. I feel like there are some other folks that are involved in this kind of work up here that would not know about it unless I called them and told them. But as far as recruitment strategies, Zach had mentioned just like picking up the phone and reaching out directly to folks is very important. And on top of that, I had suggested connecting with some of the existing organizations that have developed relationships in these areas that know some of the folks that would definitely want to be involved. Next question. Priority issues. Working with policymakers was really what floated to the top when discussing priorities for the Food Policy Council. Helping them understand some of the more complex and systemic issues instead of focusing on solutions to specific outcomes of some of the systemic problems. But also having policymakers included in the work and not just advocating to them. So like both sides of that. And then, let me see. As far as what folks might contribute to the council, I had said like really being new to this work and not having a background in it really, just experience, the opportunity to see kind of some of the trial and error that I'm going to experience working in the community and trying to get folks to the table. I'd be happy to share that. Bryant had stressed the importance of really just showing up and listening and trying not to offer so much, but to see, what to learn and take back. Zach had said that he was willing to help with some recruitment efforts and making some of the phone calls to people that might need to be involved. And as far as the committees and whether or not that would be a good approach, yeah, agreed that that could be helpful for people that are here to do specific kinds of work and connecting with certain people around specific issues or areas. I had said, as someone who's working in my area and trying to bring folks from multiple backgrounds to the table, that I would probably prefer to work with the group as a whole. And I'm going to be trying to learn as much as I can, but I would be willing to be in a committee with some other people like myself that are working in smaller communities that are rural to see what they're encountering. And that's it.
Any questions or comments for Mandolin? Okay, in the interest of time, we are going to skip over question 1 where we're talking about individuals. I'm sorry about that, but we just don't have time. So we're going to just focus on the other questions. And so we will move on to Ashley's group. Who was your person to share out, Ashley?
Guillermo.
All right.
Hey,
All right, Guillermo.
I went through all this trouble memorizing names. So,
I'm
right.
so sorry.
not really. Actually helped me out and sent me the names. So, all right. You all know who they are. But I'm going to go ahead and jump to the organizations, priorities, and skills that we can contribute as a group. The organizations that we highlighted that could add to this discussion were HBCUs. And I know there's some already in the group. Environmental justice organizations, like I work with Alianza Latina, which is a Hispanic networking organization, and more organizations like that that deal with different minority populations will also help contribute to the discussion or share information. We also were mentioning health outcome research and education organizations, such as PASOS, that deals with female reproductive health and other like family health research, but it'd be good to share nutrition-based information as well. The organizations or group of people were farmers or producers that could be also included in these discussions for different topics. And when it came to priorities, we were highlighting food education or nutrition education. Also educating people of food waste and food miles, the transportation costs of transporting food to different locations, and some area of skills to contribute. I know Spanish, so translation skills. There's also the networking aspect of our different connections, like we can connect to lawmakers, to members of the minority community, local governments, etc. So just expanding that network is also a big help. For the questions on committees, yes, that was pretty much the answer. Like, we believe it will be good to discuss different topics and focus our efforts through these different kinds of committees. So that's my summary.
Thank you so much, Guillermo. I'm already hearing some themes, and they are matching up with what you all and whoever had registered initially for this membership had entered in as top priorities. Okay, next group. Gregory, did you end up facilitating a group?
I did.
Who was your person?
Not sure what our number was, but because I joined late, I ended up just taking the notes, and so I'll do the report out if that's okay.
Nice, of course.
So just on the first question, I know we're not going into detail, but I was happy that it seemed like we did have pretty good representation geographically. We had some from Low Country, Upstate, and some folks from the Midlands, as well as in terms of organizations. We had, DHEC, State Nutrition Action Coalition, nonprofit, rural health folks. So it was a very good discussion. And in terms of what we heard about the membership, we did have a little bit of a discussion about making sure that we're really connecting with local food policy councils across the state, and talked about how that's a priority of the State Food Policy Council, the importance of having connections to elected officials and having them involved. So, just in thinking about that, maybe local level elected officials, as well as some folks involved with the state legislature, and that'll be really important from an advocacy standpoint. And then we also highlighted the need to have more producers involved. And then just in terms of priorities, of course, we talked about food access and equity, being from the perspective of the snack program, being able to support and help connect members in that program to the various programs that the different members of the Food Policy Council can be involved with, and just in general, being able to really create and facilitate this space to network and identify opportunities for collaboration, the importance of advocacy, and again, going back to needing to have access to policymakers is a really important thing. And then for subcommittees, we all agreed it was a good idea. We had 3 folks familiar with the Columbia Food Policy Committee, so we talked about that as a good model, how the Columbia Food Policy Committee has established subcommittees, but they allow space for ad hoc committees to form around specific issues, and to be able to include non-members in that process. And then education committee for nutrition and health education, and then maybe a separate advocacy and communications outreach committee to work with the other subcommittees to advance education and advocacy on those issues, and healthcare subcommittee to focus around nutrition and health education. And that's all we talked about.
Excellent. Okay. Nikki, did you have a group?
I did. We solved all the problems, so we can all just go home.
Awesome.
We had an awesome discussion. Again, also good representation across the state. We recognize that we need to do more outreach in like the weaker areas. So obviously I have dropped the ball in the low country, my bad. PD could use some TLC. I've been doing some bridge building there, hope to engage those folks. But it was brought up that to make sure that we have good representation in our rural communities, and that there could be an opportunity to leverage some of the data. We had a data lover in our group, and identify what are those priority counties that are really struggling and are really behind, and how do we make sure those folks are represented within the council, and how are we supporting them and overcoming those challenges. So also making sure we have policymakers, any government agencies, including not just state, but those federal liaisons, to ensure that we understand the programs and that we have access to those folks that can be change makers. As well as, let's see, there was one last one. Nope, that was it. We talked about, making sure that we're getting accurate data, and there was the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation had done some county health rankings, and they collaborated with SCFPC to do a really detailed map that the data actually went blank on because they ran out of their subscription. So is there an opportunity for us to support that, and so that we all have really clear, accurate data, so that we can do prioritizing based on that information? We also talked about how there was people really appreciated the former meetings that we used to do that kind of hit those cutting edge topics. So can we have those annual meetings that maybe are the state of the state, that bring up things like we did previously around food safety, et cetera. So, having a meeting on food box program lessons learned during COVID, or whatever that hot topic is for the year, to service that to the top. Making sure we're leveraging any USDA grants. So is there an opportunity for the Food Council to collaborate with its members to apply for some of this federal funding to build capacity for the council, as well as all the members, to actually drive their work forward? So could we be kind of a facilitator to bring folks together to secure that funding? And really a big talk about avoiding disconnect and making sure that the Food Policy Council is a place where we can all network and get to know each other, and understand each other's programs, surface opportunities for collaboration, and really break down silos. What we don't want it to be is another meeting that's about meetings. So making sure it's super productive. There was an interest in engaging youth and making sure that youth are a part of the conversation. So how do we leverage things like the HYPE program and Eat Smart Move More's program to have representation from younger folks, so that we have that energy and those fresh ideas, and so we can learn about cool new music, as that was my goal. And talking about The subcommittees, it was, of course, yes, subcommittees could be great, but we wanted to make sure that we have the right folks on the subcommittees so that that action can actually be implemented and that people on those committees are the right folks. And if we're realizing that the right folks aren't on the subcommittee, that could be part of us identifying new membership. So if we're talking about a program and we realize it needs to engage farmers and there's nobody on the subcommittee that has that connection, then going back to the board and saying, hey, we really need a member that can help us do this component of the committee work. So kind of leveraging the committees, not just for work, but also for helping understand who do we need at the table, and making sure that the committees use SMART goals so that we have clear objectives, everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing, and there's a timeline, and keeping people accountable. So having some element of kind of an action to drive that forward. Someone actually asked for homework, which I can appreciate. So that was our group. I think that was all we had. The one question I had thrown out to Zach on the side was, have we done a press release? So I think there's an opportunity after this meeting to do a press release to talk about the fact that this is the new and improved, Food Policy Council. Look at all these great resources we have on our website. We'd love for you to join as a member, and here's what it's all about. Maybe one of you guys wants to give us a juicy quote about, how excited you are about being a member. So yeah, that's all I've got.
You weren't far from solving the problems. You have a process set up to do so. So that's exciting.
I love a good process.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm right there with you. Okay. Did I miss a group other than my own? Have we covered all the groups other than my own group? Okay. All right, Jabari, you're up.
All right, fantastic. So in terms of who's missing, as you all referenced earlier, the PD representation, there was also some mention of the Alliance for a Healthier South Carolina, which has a policy and advocacy committee that focuses on food insecurity. So maybe reaching out to them in terms of issues to focus on. Megan Mitchner and I think Quinn's on the call too, work at the Gamecock Pantry at the University of South Carolina. And we're always trying to eliminate food waste at restaurants and other places that serve food within the Midlands and try and get that food to the people who need it. Just continuing to focus on food as a basic right and promoting access to healthier food and targeting high need areas, whether they be food swamps and food deserts, and taking a more systemic approach to addressing the issues. So not just just more than a community intervention, but also talk about things like increasing the minimum wage or addressing the root causes in an economic system, and finding ways to address both the implicit and explicit biases that may be present among those who are serving the communities of need. And that's all I have.
Wow. Okay. That was amazing. And we have even more to add to our themes, I think. And we have so many well-connected and talented and passionate people in this group of folks, even right here. And I think that we have, we know enough folks to bring in a lot of those folks that we mentioned were not at the table as well. So this is that first meeting. Now we can start spreading our reach out. So I'm just going to mention some of these themes real quick and then talk about next steps, and we'll hop off. Of course, we'll leave room for questions. We'll make room for questions. Okay, so some of these themes: food insecurity, food access and equity, having legislators involved in the work itself and not just advocated to, but advocacy is still important. Bringing community members into the conversations, and we have folks here that can do that. So some of those groups that were mentioned were PD, rural folks, HBCUs, the Hispanic community, producers themselves, policymakers, Alliance for a Healthier SC. There were others, of course. Bringing more folks to the table again. Committees, sounds like they could be helpful as long as we are we narrow it down to very specific issues and make sure that the right folks are there, and we're using SMART goals with those groups. Food and health was a big theme, whether it had to do with nutrition or healthcare, education and outreach, of course, food waste, connecting with our local food policy councils and using Columbia Food Policy Council as a great model, especially when it comes to bringing in non-members of the particular council into that work, but community members. Data is important to us. Folks like the idea of the annual meeting, knowing about the state of the state, and I think that can include webinars too, sharing state of the state through webinars. Grant leveraging and collaboration, avoiding disconnect, engaging youth, addressing root causes. I didn't finish writing it down, Jabari, but also addressing bias in folks that are making decisions, especially when it comes to racial equity, or it affects racial equity. What did I miss? I know I missed some stuff.
Alyssa, this wasn't actually talked about. We talked about it briefly as the council, but we talked about how else can we make sure that our website and our resources are inclusive. So, you know, having those translated into Spanish, having any of those resources closed captioned or, you know, visually described, etc. So there's something I wanted to kind of bring back up as a goal.
Thank you. Yes. Okay, do we have any comments or questions about today and what we've shared? Please excuse my deaf cat. He is very, very loud. Okay, so next steps. We as a board are going to be discussing the feedback and input that we have received from you all today, and see if there seems to be a lot of energy around any particular topics that we could harness to move those topics forward. I know I've heard a lot today, so that's going to be difficult. And then we'll get back together with you all for the next membership meeting in April to discuss our findings with you and figure out how to move forward. Please, in the meantime, be reaching out to folks that we have mentioned and folks that you know should be at the table. You are also welcome, if you do not feel comfortable to get in touch with us, and we can do that for you. So that's all I have. So thank you again for choosing to be here, and we are so excited about this new journey that you are embarking on with us. Any final comments? Well, we are 2 minutes over. Oh, you're welcome. We're 2 minutes over, and I do apologize for that. So I hope it wasn't too impactful, the 2 minutes. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Y'all take it easy.
Thank you. Great meeting.
Bye, Jabari. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.